Welcome to Everyone Deserves Sunshine. I'm Diana.
And I'm Anusha. We're the girls in the crease. And today we're going to talk about knocking down walls.
That's right. We are talking about how we're going to springboard our love for heated rivalry into action, into advocacy, and into allyship.
And we have a guest helping us dive into this.
That's right. This is episode 13, Advocacy and Breaking Walls.
Joining us today is Tracy. When asked how she would like to be introduced, did send me the following. She is Tracy Renee of the House of Suits, first of her name, queen of her home, maps, one-liners, protector of the realm, lady of Chalfont, New Britain Dems, breaker of heads, and mother of dragons, in addition to, I think, also some children who are human. Welcome to the show, Tracy. I'm not really sure what more we can say after that introduction. I think we should just end the show right now. It's done. Tracy's actually a friend of ours, and
Indeed.
we have obliquely referenced her multiple times on this show. So it's like really fun to actually have you here, Tracy, and for you to speak for yourself.
It's really fun to be here. It's like a dream come true.
The first thing we always ask everyone, and I know you're dying to tell us, is your origin story of how you got into heated rivalry.
My origin story for heated rivalry. Okay, I'm a really huge fan of Heartstopper. I think that is one of the best television shows ever made. And I had seen the trailers for heated rivalry on HBO as I was watching something else. And then was on Threads and someone was posting about the club scene and stills of Ilya in the club. And I was like, this is really beautiful. And in the comments, someone said, if you were ever looking for a grown-up Heartstopper, this is it. And I'm like, oh, I got to put that on my to-watch list. Then in the very much previously referenced Dinner in December, when Anusha was absolutely feral for heated rivalry, I'm like, okay, I have to move that up my watch list, and immediately started watching it, I think the next day. And at first I thought, yeah, it's really, really sexy, but I don't know if there's a lot of story here. And then I got to episode 3 and I'm completely in love with Scott and Kip. If you've watched, you all already know the magic of 4, 5, and 6. Like, you just fall in love over and over again with those characters. And that is my origin story.
So, Tracy, going back to your introduction, because you said things that I want to explore further, because you put in that you were part of the New Britain Gems, and you also said something about maps.
Yeah, what about these maps?
Yeah, both of those things are representative of like my local political activism, I guess, is the easiest way to say it. In 2017, I got involved locally in politics when I ran for school board. I was on our local school board. And after my term ended on the school board, I got into some other political activism, part of which was having a redraw of our district so that voting was more representative of the actual voters in our district rather than the gerrymandered map we had previously. So as a group of citizens, we proposed that, and we ended up having to go to court and defend that against the school district and won. So the maps that are in place are maps that were created by citizens, petitioned by citizens to put in place. And we just had our first election in 2025 with those maps. And people were really excited about the representation that that gave them. Also, after my term on the school board ended, I became the chair of the Chalfont New Britain Democrats. And there I helped to get Dems elected.
That's kind of amazing. I mean, the sheer amount of work and dedication and just emotional fortitude that it took for you to do all of that. And I say this especially because when your term in school board ended, if I were you, because it was just as COVID was getting started and a lot of really horrible things were happening in our district. And by the way, when I met you, I was like completely in awe, but I just remember how poised you were through the entire escapade of the bad behavior that translated into bad policy in our school district. And if I were you, I would have just curled up into a little ball after my term ended and said, I've done my civic duty. What kept you going?
Well, to be fair, I did kind of curl up for a year. Being on the school board for me was all about safe spaces for all the kids in the district. I have 3 children. They are spread apart in age. By the time my youngest graduates, I'm gonna be a parent in this district for, like, 25 years or something. So, it's not just my kids, but it's their friends, and it's the kids that, kind of just fall in the middle. While what you saw on the surface often in meetings was me keeping my cool and trying to be articulate and make my point, all underneath was a lot of fury, very protective, and I think some more of that has been visible now that I'm not on the board and I don't feel like I
Mhm.
have to tuck away some of those emotions, so letting my emotions be more at the forefront. Since our topic is allyship, I think that me basically taking a year off is a really important thing for allies to not only
Mm.
do, but to afford other people to do. One of my favorite Audre Lorde quotes is that self care is a form of resistance. That spoke to me so much because if we don't take those times off when we need it, then we won't be able to come back and fight the next fight.
You are definitely one of the, key like, public allies for our district. Much like the national focus on LGBTQ kids or LGBTQ anybody, the focus on our school district became those kids. And it brought up the same protective instinct in me that it brought up in you. As someone who's kind of gone through that, like very viscerally and publicly, what did the show mean to you?
Until you asked me to talk about this subject, I hadn't really given it a lot of thought. I go back and think kind of about my journey of allyship. I started my career in a very male dominated field, always considered myself very much a feminist, but I don't think I really knew what that meant or what that required of me. So I always looked at it as opening doors. For like I'm inside, so let me open the doors and let other people come inside. Let me,
Mhm,
make
mhm,
sure the door
mhm,
is not bolted. And so that was the way I always looked at it. And in reflecting to talk up with you all today, I realized part of a big growth of my activism was becoming a mother of a daughter. And in my 40s, finally developing really deep female friendships. I was
mm,
very comfortable in the patriarchy. Didn't mean I was trying to uphold it, but I was comfortable there
mm,
and I could navigate it really easily. And so I thought, I just like open the door, let other people in and help them navigate it. And I think that thinking about this and how it relates to heated rivalry is we're not opening doors. Like if we really want to make a difference as allies, we're not opening doors and letting people in. We're knocking down the doors, we're knocking down the walls, we're dismantling things. And heated rivalry is so different in that way because it really has broken things down, dismantled things, things that were previously taboo for a lot of people, something that we haven't seen a lot of is
mhm,
now not only the topic of the show. It's not like a side character
mhm,
or a one arc on one episode. It's the story.
mm,
And, I've had coworkers say, like, this is the first time I saw myself
mm,
on television, like, as a main character. And that was that's really, really powerful and made me, in the lens of heated rivalry, think it's important for me to just be comfortable to talk about heated rivalry, like, at a lunchtime conversation, because we talk about Bridgerton at a lunchtime conversation, so we're gonna normalize this. When I had a
mhm,
miscarriage, we're gonna normalize conversations about miscarriage, like,
mhm,
I'm going through something, people, like, need to, like, have it not like all the details, but just the experience.
mm.
Now I'm very much in perimenopause. All my coworkers know all about it because I will not stop talking about it. These are like just things that are happening to me, cis hetero white woman, that we can't talk about. Like, how are we going to get deeper? If we can't talk about something that impacts 50% of the population eventually, then how are we going to be comfortable talking about the things that impact 5%? Or
Mm, yeah.
less that are
Mhm,
still, like, super important to those people. They're part of who they are. Like,
mm,
this is not different.
yeah.
And making that normalized just as much as anything else, that's the micro allyship. That's like the people that I'm with on a regular basis, giving them a safe space to live their life openly. So I think I definitely appreciate you asking me to think about it because was like a real like little mind trick to figure out like where have I been and what were my triggers to change
Mhm.
how I looked at allyship.
Something that we talked about in our last episode about allyship, where we analyzed the
Mhm.
women who were there for Shane and Ilya and Kip and Scott. And we spent the entire episode, rightfully, I think, talking about them as allies. But
Mhm.
we also don't know what they did publicly. I want to tie back into this because you said the phrase micro ally or micro allyship. So is that enough?
I mean, I
Yeah.
think, it's like that personal allyship that,
Mm-hmm.
that you build relationally. I went back to listen to Maxine's episode again and giving us another thought to the women of the episode. And the thing that definitely displays micro allyship, they each show up as kind of like a fill-in for a little something that's missing for each of the men.
Mm.
So like Svetlana is comforting. She's safe. She's providing like that physical touch, that connection back to home. And even though, yes, they had a physical relationship, probably something slightly maternal in the way that she did care for him. Then I was thinking about Rose. One of the things on my first reheat that actually like made me really uncomfortable about Rose was that she has this conversation with Shane in an open restaurant. Like, obviously, he's closeted. Like, I know there's not many people in this restaurant, but still. And so, as I'm thinking about, like, what is she providing that's missing? It's courage and it's
Mm.
openness. She's like,
Ah.
we're having this conversation here. This is a public place. We're keeping our voices down. But Rose has a lot of courage and
Mm.
she gives Shane courage, I think, by being who she is, pushing him gently. While that initially irked me, I think that it's part of the what she brings that
Mhm.
is that Shane is missing. And then Elena, who I absolutely love how Maxine referred to her as like, okay, the adult has arrived. Like, yes, Elena I see as a mirror. She's a mirror to Kip and she's a mirror to Scott by
Mm.
saying like, you deserve this to both of them
Mhm.
by reminding Kip that he's kind of reverting to things that he's changed, like building this relationship with his dad, being out and living his out proud life. And I feel like she's reflecting that back to him in the
Mm.
conversations that they have, just kind of like that reminder of you've already fought so hard to get to this point, and I'm going to show it to you because I don't want you to go backwards because you deserve more. So all very different, in my opinion, ways that these women are supporting the men in those small ways. Are they like marching in pride parades and giving money to the Trevor Project? I don't know. And I don't think it matters in the grand scheme of things for the show. I think they're serving the purpose that's needed to tell the story, to further the story, and also be a good example for us of small ways that we can be allies to the people that we love.
When Heated Rivalry came out, the discourse was very much, this has never been done before. These stories have never been shown in such a way. And I remember posting on threads, it's great to love these characters and you can talk about them and analyze them or whatever, but how do you take that outside of the
Right.
fandom, you know? And I
Mhm.
remember posting something about like how we have spent the last 4 years, if not longer, fighting for LGBTQ kids and their rights within our district, fighting Moms for Liberty, all of these people who had seats on our school board who were dead set on causing harm to our LGBTQ, not just students, but population, including teachers and advocates and activists. And we had serious issues within our district. There was national news over
Mhm.
and over again, and all three of us were in it. But you, Tracy, were really in it because you were on the school board during, when COVID was starting, but that all got mixed in together, weirdly enough. You forgot to mention you're not
Mhm.
just the chair of the Chalfont New Britain Dems, but you're also the chair of the PAC that helps elect school board candidates who will protect and honor our LGBTQ plus population in addition to all other students. So do you want to perhaps talk about that piece? Yes, we talk a lot about the show, but I also think that like the attacks on LGBTQ kids have not stopped. In fact, with
Right.
this new reused, not a new administration, they have progressed and they've
Yeah.
gotten worse. And we have a lot of attacks on our trans youth more so now than before. And so that's why we wanted to do this follow up episode to allyship, because what does it look like in the real world? And before we move on, I do want to say that, like, none of us are perfect in any allyship, and, like, we are
Absolutely
not
not.
trying to say that we are. We are just also navigating it day by day, sometimes getting it right, sometimes getting it wrong. So this is not an episode where we're, like, preaching to anyone. We're just talking about how we have been doing it here, what has been successful and maybe what has not, and I think that's really worth a discussion.
I think that is super important piece. Most importantly, we have to try. Like, even if we don't get it right, we have to try. And then when we get it wrong, we have to listen
Mm,
to the people who are impacted by that, and not like kind of get our hackles up. Like, well, I tried. Like, you don't appreciate my attempts. So
mhm.
I was actually very terrified to do something wrong in support of the LGBTQ community. But when week after week and meeting after meeting, teenagers come to the meeting and say, I'm
Mm,
not safe at my school.
mm.
If you can sit there and do nothing, then I don't know who those people are. I don't want to know that. Well, I do
Maybe
know
you
who they
don't
are.
belong there, actually.
So,
If
yeah.
you can sit
Yeah,
there and do nothing, you
I
don't
did.
belong there.
Yeah.
No, you do not. You do not. Because it doesn't matter who it is. I don't want any kid to come to our meetings and say, I don't feel safe at school for any reason. But we heard that most common from the queer kids.
Mm.
And so it was absolutely a wake up call of like, get out of your comfort zone and try. And if you get it wrong, say, oh, I was wrong. Now I will learn from that and
Mm.
try again.
I think the part that is so interesting to me is this idea that soft power can translate into like actual action that can have long-standing consequences as it did for our district. The soft power is the story. So much of what set up this actual political action was hinged on the power of those stories. And to
Yeah.
me, that's what heated rivalry does.
Because the story is what moves us, right? Like,
Mhm.
I have friends who are not politically engaged. They just live their lives, but then they watched Heated Rivalry and now they're like, I want to make sure that queer kids have a chance, right? Like, I want to make sure that people get to marry who they love. I think the idea that you have the story that moves people who have never even really, like, too much paid attention to other things outside of their own lives. No judgment, but, like, just saying, everyone's different.
Mhm.
I think the fact that those stories move people is something. Those kids who came to those meetings moved so much of our community with their stories, perhaps people who have never been involved before. And I think that is true because we saw a lot of
Yeah.
community members come out saying, like, I've never done this before. I have
Mhm.
never attended a
Mhm.
school board meeting. I never listened to a school board meeting. But when I hear kids and their stories and kids are being actively harmed in our school district, like, I'm here to fight for them. And
Yeah.
that's how we built this community of activists.
It's one thing to hear a statistic, and it's another thing to see that statistic come to life in front of you. It's one thing to think about these kids in Russia, like, hiding their true selves, and it's another
Mm.
thing to see Ilya struggle with that in such a beautifully personal way, and it's so but it's also so universal. I think that's the, like, power of stories is when you reduce it to one person, you can imagine being in their shoes and translate it to
Yeah.
something that connects to you, and some people need that to act.
I think a
I
lot of people need that to act,
Yeah.
to be completely
Yeah.
honest. I think I would
Yeah.
I would argue that most people are not intrinsically willing to put themselves out there in harm's way just for other people.
Well, coming off the heels of Dr. Tab, like there are things in our identities also that make us comfortable
Mm.
with certain types of activism. I was comfortable with feminism. I knew what I needed to do.
Mhm.
It developed over time, but I knew what I needed to do because it's my point of view. I am a woman.
Mm.
I had to study and learn and listen to become a good ally and advocate for LGBTQ community, for people of
Mhm.
color, for people with disabilities. Like I can probably say that, just being an ally is not enough. We have to also do the
Mhm.
advocacy
Mhm.
portion. But you're not going to do it well if it's not your lived experience, unless you listen to
Mhm.
people who are experiencing those things. And I know, both of you having immigrant identities, being a person of color, being a religious minority, like these are all things that you from the beginning were comfortable in your allyship and advocacy because that's your lived experience. But we
Mhm.
have to we have to learn those other things,
Mhm.
and we learn that through stories. We don't like facts are not gonna like facts are good. I'm an engineer, so of course I love facts, but the facts are not enough.
Mm.
The facts have to have meaning, and they have
Yeah.
meaning through people's stories.
And that's why heated rivalry is moving so many people because it is told in such a way that is moving and that is impactful. And that is why we keep talking about it, because of the story itself, because of these characters who are like letting us live through them, through their eyes.
So what makes you translate that into advocacy? They're not interchangeable, right?
Mm-mm.
And I think that
Yeah.
to me is the heart of it, and maybe what I was trying to get at with the characters who are allies to their friends in the show, and how that translates to something that we are hoping to do with ourselves in the real world, like advocacy.
Personally, I think you can be an ally and an advocate. I
Mhm.
don't know how you can be an advocate and not be an ally, but
Yeah.
you can be an ally without being an advocate. It was like a conversation I had when I first ran for office about like a friend of mine who was considering running for office. I was like, I think you will be eaten alive because you are an advocate. You are not a politician. Politician is very much like a cringy, like gross word, but bottom line is you have to be able to give and take, understand policy, like
Mhm.
change
Yep.
policy to change ways. That's
Mhm.
what being a politician is. So we need allies to be advocates and we need allies to be politicians
Mhm.
Mhm.
to actually make changes. That micro allyship is very important in that like our own little like safe spaces. But beyond that, we have to move the needle in a bigger way. The phrase that always comes out in these discussions is representation matters.
Mhm.
And so, as a hetero white woman, I have to make space. I have to use my privilege to make space and create opportunities for other people who may not have those opportunities otherwise. And this is not Tracy comes in and saves the day because she's the white lady kind of framing. Like that, you have to give that away that this is not about you in any way. This is about the cause, the future,
Mhm.
the betterment. Um,
Mhm.
and if you can give that away and say, this is not about me. So if I'm wrong, I'm going to accept that I'm wrong. I'm going to listen. So if someone tells me that I'm wrong, even if I'm not, I'm like, I might be right. But ask the question, what is wrong about this to you? And if you can
Mhm.
listen to that and process that and even just tweak it, because as we know, perception and intent are not the same thing.
Mhm.
And so even if we don't intend to be or do something as an advocate or an ally, we might still make someone feel a certain way. And feelings are valid whether you like someone's feelings or not. So putting it into action is like making that space for other people, amplifying voices of minorities. Earlier said, like, I make myself these like reading goals that are just out of the blue. Like every month, I'm going to read at least one book by an author of color. Or this year, it's every month I'm reading at least one banned book. Like those are like reading goals for my own education. For one, they make me a better, smarter, more powerful ally and also give me an opportunity to elevate the authors saying the important things that are telling the stories that we're
Mhm.
otherwise not hearing. Taking that space to open up representation, if you're only doing that in your small little circles and you're not doing that in a bigger stage where someone can see it or hear it and say, I identify with that, or that makes me feel seen, then what are we doing?
One of the things I think we've been sort of circling around through our entire podcast is this idea that representation matters. This is something that our school district and we have encountered in terms of how book bans arrive to our community. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that can really tie into sort of how stories matter.
Yeah, post pandemic, there was, for whatever reason, books became the enemy of Moms for Liberty and and the powers that be on our school board, which is understandable because books are knowledge and knowledge is, it's hard to keep
Dangerous.
dangerous. It's
Power.
hard to keep educated people down. So a new policy for book challenges was written and implemented in our school district. The policy is allowing every person to, whether they have children in the school or not even, can challenge a book and ask the school board to review it and have it pulled off the shelves. And it made national news. And without fail, the books that were challenged were almost exclusively about representation. By and large, the community stood against that book ban in a number of ways. We spoke out. We educated people on what the policy was. And then because I love to read so much, my personal mission was reading these books. If they're
Oh,
challenged, let me see if I can figure out why they're challenged. I ended up
wow.
reading I read more than two, but I read two and specifically reached out to their authors. The first one I read was 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult. I just dropped into Jodi Picoult's DMs and said, "Hey, I'm reading your book and it's being challenged in our school district. Would you have a message you would want to give?" And she reached out to me via email and sent me a very lovely long letter that she wanted read of why she wrote 19 Minutes and why she felt it was important and why she felt book bans were actually doing the opposite of what was important to her about 19 Minutes because it was about being seen. So the next month, I'm like, "Oh, let's try again. Let's see what we can do." And so the next month, I read Girl in Translation by Jean Kwok, and I did the same thing, reached out to Jean Kwok. Jean was so lovely. She said, "I want to come speak on behalf of my book myself." I would be traveling to the US during that time. She just changed her travel arrangements and came, and we kind of stood side by side and spoke on behalf of her book. I guess the activism, the allyship there is before you decide an entire like 500 pages of a book has no value. If you don't understand the feeling of not seeing yourself represented and how differently it feels when you do, then you struggle to put yourself in that position and see why that's valuable
Mhm.
for other people, especially adolescents.
When we're talking about representation, the 2 or 3 books that actually were banned due to these policies from our school libraries were about LGBTQ plus
Mhm.
youth.
Yes.
And that was part of the reason why so many kids came out and spoke up against these policies, and why so many of our teachers and staff also participated in pushing back against these policies. But the importance of that representation is what we here in the district fought for. Because, I mean, not
Mhm.
only do we ourselves feel like it's important for everyone to see themselves in books and movies and in media and so on, but we also heard the kids saying that it's important for them to see
Yeah.
themselves in these mediums. That's why Heated Rivalry partly is having such an impact because of that representation. And that's why those books that the kids fought for were having such an impact because of
Yeah.
representation, because we hadn't seen a trans character in books probably ever, you know? I mean, I know I
Mhm.
didn't when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why, when you're talking about allyship or representation, like it matters for people to do what we have done here and to continue to do what we are doing here.
So, story time. I came to the US when I was young. I was 8. It was desperately lonely time. And
Mm.
as like a very shy, introverted child, I found so much comfort in libraries.
Mm.
I read books that didn't reflect me at all. I
Mhm.
read books about American history, historical fiction, and I learned about my new country. I learned to sort of expand my worldview. Like, I feel like those years were so pivotal in constructing how I think I should behave towards other people
Mhm.
because it opened up more than just myself. Like, to see other people represented was like, wow, okay, there's all these other types of people. Representation matters for the people and the community that are in the minority that don't see themselves, but it
Mhm.
matters equally to the people who always and only see themselves because it expands their world.
And that's a good
And
point because, like, if anyone needs it, it's the people who don't know
Yes.
anything outside of their
Right.
neighborhoods, you know? I feel like people think I'm crazy, but like see myself represented for the first time. And I'm not trying to like center myself in any way, shape, or form, but like I've never seen a Russian person represented the way Ilya is represented with such
Mhm.
depth and such
Mm.
nuance and such a
Affection?
softness and affection and love, and
Mm.
I've never seen that. I know I've said it many times, like, I didn't even wanna watch the show because he was a Russian character, because I knew what that was gonna be like, but I didn't know because I've never seen it done this way,
Mm.
and when I read all these, like, analysis about Ilya, like, I'm like, "Yeah, like, no shit, like, this is what a, Soviet-born person, regardless man or woman, will have will have felt through all of
Yeah.
this time, and this is what it means for them to be an immigrant and to be in an American culture or Canadian culture, right? For me, it wasn't the representation of the LGBTQ. For me, it was this representation, which is so niche, but like it was of
Yeah.
this Russian character that I had never seen before and I relate to so very much. And that's part of the reason why I'm so in love with the show and his character because I just like see myself in him and I haven't seen that before.
And I think it's sparked conversation about how his background informs his behavior and his personality and his
Mhm.
identity. Like that understanding people's stories and seeing them shown, even if you don't know that path yourself. It's so deeply humanizing. And
Mm,
it's all well and good to say, well, you should feel for people no matter who
mhm,
they are. I don't think that automatically happens unless you see them humanized
Right.
mhm. Yeah.
in a broad forum. Humanizing language, either in books or humanizing portrayals, like what you were talking about, it develops an understanding of cultures and identities and people that you don't know of, right?
Mhm.
Or their life. And I think that is just one of the most amazing things that this show has done by being so mainstream and so accessible and kind of like permeating the cultural milieu is that it has given that voice to representation, both for people who don't see themselves and even more importantly, for people who have never thought of
Yeah.
this.
When I was talking about like the micro versus
Mm.
macro and the allyship versus advocacy, what
Mhm.
we do as individuals with other individuals, like what we do in our friendship, where I honor you for who you are, builds our trust and our
Mhm.
relationship. But it doesn't do that much for anybody else. That macro level of allyship and advocacy, that is where the representation is born. That's where
Mm.
we shine the light on the beauty of the differences. And we do it in a way that people whose beauty has not been celebrated before is now celebrated. Diana saw herself, the beauty of who she is inside as a Soviet born woman immigrating to the United States, like you saw the beauty of yourself in Ilya's character. And that is a gift given to all of us because now we've all seen it. And there's beauty in that entire 6 episodes that our job is to celebrate it and continue it more
Mm.
than our micro level. There are other people who are going to see themselves and feel seen, feel stronger, feel more confident, feel more valued for who they are because of something in Heated Rivalry or something in one of these books that they're trying to hide from them. Your internal power comes from knowing that other people value you.
The question that I think I want to answer at the end of this segment is what do we do from here? How do we take these stories that we're seeing, especially the story with Heated Rivalry? Yes, it's all good and fun to be in the fandom, to have a great time, to make edits and, make these podcasts, draw and whatever else you're inspired to do with this new creativity that has been unlocked and with these new feelings and emotions. But do you think, or do the both of you think that we now have a responsibility to do something with this outside of just being creative? Like, there are attacks, as we have said earlier, on our LGBTQ plus youth, especially our trans kids, and just grown-ups too, actually. So we have this beauty in the show, but what do we do with that outside of it? Like, where do we go from there? Do we have a responsibility, or do we just say this is just beautiful art and hopefully more art like this will be made?
That is the big question. Do you have a responsibility as a viewer? And even more so, should viewers have that responsibility? And
Mhm.
I I'm gonna say the answer is maybe.
Mhm.
Um, and I think this can be a very individual thing because we're all in different places in terms of our progression to being better people,
Mhm.
being better allies, being a kinder person, being a better advocate. And the reason I say maybe is because when you press people beyond where they are, usually it'll backfire spectacularly. But take the love that you have for the show and do something with it. If where you are is not thinking through these things, the next step for you is to maybe read the book or find another book or find another story that will expand your mind. Maybe if you're in a place where you know someone in a marginalized community, maybe this next step will be like to create those relationships and be that micro ally, like what you said, Tracy, creating those relationships and bonds. And maybe if you're already someone who is tired and burnt out and scared and like has had a place in advocacy already, maybe this show will take your demoralized self and give it something to look forward to and
Mhm.
re-energize involving yourself in your community. I think the key for me is to not be static, to not take the show and just encapsulate it in a moment. The point for me is to take it and take the next step. And whatever that looks like, whatever that progression looks like for you is deeply personal.
I have a lot
Mhm.
of thoughts about the do we have a responsibility? When we first started watching Heated Rivalry, all of us in
Mhm.
December, there was a lot of backlash around straight women
Mm.
being so into Heated Rivalry.
Mm, mhm,
And there were a
mhm,
lot of accusations of fetishization
mm,
Mhm.
of gay men.
mm,
And that hurt my feelings
Mhm.
because I
Mhm.
absolutely did not feel like that was the case for me. But also, like we've talked about, if someone says something, like take a minute and reflect in it, like why would they have that
Mhm.
perspective?
mm,
I didn't understand
Mhm.
like why. So I think here we do have a responsibility in
Mhm.
that we love this show and we love this story and we love these characters, not because they are gay men, but they are gay men. And that's a group that is marginalized. If we love them, let's make space for more of them.
mhm,
So we watch other male romances. We
Mhm.
read gay authors. We just open one door after another as a result of our love for
Mhm.
Heated Rivalry, this story, these characters. So in that case, yes, I think we have a responsibility. And that ties back to your art begets art episode because this is art and much more
Mhm.
art has been created from it. And I am not an artist. I'm not going to create art from this, but I
Mhm.
fully believe that you should allow art to change you, even if you don't like it. Probably more if you don't like it.
Mhm.
We should let art change us. So again, yes, I think we have a responsibility because it's art and
Mhm.
we should let art change us. The last piece is really tied to that allyship and advocacy. And as both of you know, I was, raised in a Christian family. I still attend Christian church. There's a verse that is faith without works or deeds is dead.
Mhm.
And you can also substitute faith for love. Love without works or
Mhm.
deeds is dead. If we love something and we don't
mm,
do anything about it, then do we really love it? If you're out there listening and you do not see yourself in that verse, that you do not see that you are like that you're walking the talk,
Mhm.
then your faith is not there. Your love is not there. The love that we have for Heated Rivalry and the characters and the story and what it means needs to continue to be additive.
Mhm.
And so I am going to disagree, I think, with Anusha and say, yes, we have a responsibility, but
Okay, I
but
love
everyone's
that.
responsibility is different. I agree with that
Right.
part. I
Yeah.
agree with that
Mhm.
part. But I do think, yes, there is a responsibility if you're a fan of the show to use your love for the show to beget more love.
I think that to answer my own question a little bit, we have a responsibility, period, I think, as people, right?
Yeah.
To better the lives of other people around us if you can, if you are able to, if you have the privilege to do so. I know that I do. So I will continue to use that privilege to hopefully make someone else's life better in any way that I can. But I've always been this way, right? Like that's just something that I was innately born
Mhm.
with. I don't know why, but I think both of you are right because maybe you have the responsibility because if you're able to, right? If you can, if you feel safe doing so.
Mhm.
And yes, you definitely have a responsibility because all of us have that responsibility to each other, to our communities, and to the people outside of our communities. So you're both right.
Thank
Ye
you. I love the additive of if you're able to, if you feel safe with
Mm.
it, because my message of, yes, it's our responsibility is really more to people like me, like,
Mm-hmm.
which is a huge piece of the fandom.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Straight
Yeah.
white women who are in perimenopause. We are feral. I think I'm speaking like very directly to people like me. Like
Yeah, yeah,
when I
yeah.
That's
say
okay,
we have a
yeah.
responsibility. I'm glad that you made that distinction because I
Mhm.
want to be clear that I am
Mhm.
not putting the responsibility back on the queer community,
Oh,
people
right,
of
Mhm.
right. Of
color. Like
course.
I'm putting it on those people who like, the reason people said you were acting like a fetishist is because you were kinda acting like fetishists,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I get that. So
Yeah.
Mhm. That, I think, is why I said maybe, and I also still think that
That's how I understood it too. That's why
yeah,
yeah.
but the other thing I think it can really do is build intersectionality. Just because I'm a person of color, it doesn't mean my cultural background is
Mhm,
open
Mm.
to
Mhm.
other ways of being. This is my chance, I feel, to try to build those intersectional on understandings
mhm,
Mhm.
between people of different identities, or different groups that are minorities. I know you're saying you're speaking to people like you, Tracy, but I actually think people like me can use the idea of being not feeling like you're belonging to help understand and open my own community to that. And
mhm,
I think that's for me very personal way that I've done this is really to confront some of that within my own family, in my own world,
Mhm.
where I have trouble actually talking about it because I
mhm,
don't know how to do it in this group.
Mhm.
So I think that that's a call off for me too, is to build those bridges.
I know exactly what you mean, Anusha, because I'm doing the same thing within my own families. When you grow up in the Soviet Union, homophobia is literally criminalized, right? Like Tab brought up those statistics about like what was it, like
Mhm.
20 or 30% of Russians said they should be executed.
executed.
Yes.
Um, when you're growing up with that, like I've been having so many conversations, with my family, and because we've been fighting for LGBTQ youth, obviously they've paid attention to me and all the work that we were doing. But like, yes, within my own family, within my friendship groups between Russians, like that has been my responsibility that I've given to myself, like to make sure that they listen, even if they disagree. To perhaps I can get them to change perspectives. I'm still working on them to watch the show. Like it's gonna happen. I'm gonna wear them down eventually. Um, because I think it's important, like I really do. And like you said, Anusha, I really understand you because within your own community, even though you're a person of color, even though I'm an immigrant, I'm a Jewish immigrant, you need to do work in your culture as well.
Mhm.
Because just because we're of color or immigrants
Yeah.
or a minority, it doesn't mean that we're all accepting of anyone else. So I think that's a really good point. So thanks for bringing that up. Well, listen, we're coming to an end. I want to thank Tracy, the mother of dragons and children, the map maker, the strongest ally, and most importantly, the best hype girl we know. Yep, you will see her on our threads constantly sharing our stuff and hyping us up. So she's pretty awesome. So thank you, Tracy, so much for coming. We are so grateful for you as an ally, as an advocate, for everything that you do, and for being our friend.
And
Thank
I was going to
you.
say for being our friend and for coming on the show.
Thank you for making this dream of mine come true to be temporarily one of the girls in the crease. Like, what an
Oh.
honor to be here with the two of you and talk about a very important subject to me and letting me pretend like I'm some authority on something when most of the time I'm just like, heads down, let's do the work.
Is actually the perfect advocate and ally is someone who just ego aside and just does it, right?
Just does
Yeah.
it. Well, that was a very heavy topic, but an important one. I'm glad Tracy was there for us. And again, thank you, Tracy, for coming on our show and sharing your experience and your, life with us.
Talking to you and Tracy about the ways heated rivalry expands the way we view the world is my moon joy. I'm going to use, yes, the Artemis 2 famous quote,
Mm.
because that also gave me a lot of joy this week.
Yeah, you and I both, girl. That was amazing to watch. Speaking of joy, my moment of sunshine this week is well, as I told you last week, we went to see colleges with my daughter. So that was really awesome. We had a really great time in DC. I love American University. I want to go there. But my truest moment of joy this week, and it actually has to do with heated rivalry, and that is I started making edits. I don't know if you've noticed that I started making heated rivalry edits. I got my hands on the show and now I'm putting like it to the music that us elder millennials and Gen
I
Xers
know.
know and recognize. And I'm loving it. I'm having a great time. I'm spending way too much time on it, but it's bringing me, again, so much joy. And that is my moment of sunshine for the week. How about yours?
My moment of sunshine is actually one of your edits or the edit that you sent
This
me.
was not planned, by the way.
I mean, it was truly one of the most beautiful things I'd ever seen. Like setting the monologue to the moon and the Artemis 2 voyage. I had goosebumps and I was crying. It was so gorgeous.
Wow, that is
You are
actually
my
pretty
moment of
perfect.
sunshine.
I am your moment of sunshine. Listen,
Mhm.
I am so many people's moments of
You
sunshine
are.
that
You are.
this is actually not at all surprising for me.
No,
So,
no. There you go. So, of
but
course.
you wait, did you enjoy the Flyers game? You also did that.
Yes, I did that. I mean, there were too many this week, but that
I
was like the
know.
pinnacle. But yes, we went to a Flyers game. It was actually my first hockey game in the Philly area. We were in the gritty section, and my favorite thing about the night was when my daughter said, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll be the gritty substitute when he's gone," and she lived up to it. So
Oh,
it was
that's
pretty
amazing.
amazing.
I love that. All right. Well, I love that. So, multiple moments of sunshine this
Multiple,
week.
yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Next week on Everyone Deserves Sunshine, we're talking about our favorite underrated scenes because we've done a lot of serious and it's time to get back to our roots of being
Our
feral,
roots.
horny ladies. So, subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
And if you want to say hi to the girls in the crease, find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at Everyone Deserves Sunshine.
Or email us at everyonedeservesunshine@gmail.com. New episodes drop on Mondays.
See you then.